Hello, my name is Riku Päkkönen. As Eva told, I'm here still from early 90s. Started Spine Farm Records 1990, releasing first music then, and then did that for like 22 years. Sold the company to Universal 2004, and then after they got rid of me, started a new label 2013 or something, and which is Rankakustannus, which is actually spine in Finnish, yeah. and that's what I've been doing like last 10 years. That's a short version.
Okay, yes, we go back to you. Maya.
Yes, my name is Maya. I work with Oskar at year one. I do operations, and I've done it for 5 years, something like that. And before that, I did a bunch of other stuff.
How do you define operations at your label?
Everything.
Yeah, it's like
So
sergeant.
you're the person who works.
All the important stuff.
No, it's like sergeant in arms,
Yeah.
sort of. Yeah, a bunch of everything. We have a very diverse business, and I get into the middle of all of it, basically. Yeah.
Great. Roger.
I'm Roger. I run the European part of Epitaph Records from Amsterdam. Since 1994, we've been based there, the only office in Europe. American label, as you might know, with a lot of foot in the ground in Sweden.
Yeah, tell us about that, or you will today.
Yeah, we definitely will. There's actually a few people I just ran into, which we're close to, and this man is also part of that world. So it's all coming together in this room, which is very funny and very enjoyable. Burning Heart was a brother or a sister label from Epitaph in a way, making great music on the level of what was done in America, and it was unbelievable to work through that together. And we've building with it still now. I mean, it's an incredible catalog, and some artists who are still active that are now part of the Epitaph family. So we're in the middle of all that. So I feel quite at home here.
You're much welcome. Hey, Oskar.
Hey. My name is Oskar Ekman. Ska jag prata på engelska?
English, please.
English, please. Okay, so I co-founded and I'm the CEO of 10-year-old hybrid music company, year one.
Yeah.
And funnily, I've actually played guitar very poorly in a band who was on both these labels.
At the same time?
No, when we were kicked out of Burning Heart, Spine Farm saved us basically, and put out the last studio album, and yeah, that's me.
And then
can I say, we would have not released that record unless we didn't have the distribution of Epitaph in the 90s, because we probably sold like a couple of 100,000 units of Offspring and Bad Religion and Rancid and whatever they were. So with that money we invested into releasing music on our own, which gave us an opportunity like 8 years later to release your band. So it's a small world.
Here we are.
I'm really looking forward to this talk. And just to recap, as some of you know, SOM has its 50th anniversary, and in October, Maya participated in the panel we did then, which I'm so grateful at. And we're gonna talk about how to build an independent company today, but also how to continue being an independent today in different strategies and inspiration. But what's cool about, because in that panel I sort of presented the labels from the year they were founded, because of, as we all know, the sound carriers and the technology development presents very different opportunities to make money. And Riku, you had done both. You have done a record company before, and then you started again in a more digital world. If we start off with you, what's the main difference?
Actually, it's pretty much the same, but I started like at the worst, probably 2013 was the worst possible time to start a label, because that was the time when physical was coming down rapidly, and digital didn't make it up at that time. So it was really, really, really tough first few years that we had us. But I think what changed like is basically, which is I think important for indie labels, that you have to have totally different finances to do this stuff nowadays, because you have to wait that money so much longer. Back in the physical time, if we release the record, normally it's shipped the most of what you're gonna sell, and you probably get the money like within like 90 days or something. Now that 90 days is easily 3 years or something. So you have to be able to finance your business all through that 3 years. So it's much tougher financially. You have to have really, really deep pockets nowadays. So I was lucky like starting at the time when it was slightly easier.
So to your point, it's not only, or just to clarify, it's not only the income streams that are different, but it's also the cash flow rhythm sort of that you just pointed out.
Yeah, cash flow is different. But of course, like then the thing is basically for Spinefarm label for us, like when I sold like the label to Universal, I thought like a large part of the catalog is dead because we didn't carry those CDs anymore. And then like looking now the numbers on the digital, like I did sell the company pretty cheap because I couldn't expect that those stuff will be that valuable later. So what's changed, like if you have a patience, you have a possibility to wait 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. So it's way better than that time, because like the money keep flowing forever basically if you do good content. So it changed in that sense, but the first payout is very, very slow.
Yeah, Oskar, when you started you didn't have a back catalog.
No.
How did you start year one?
The reason why I say hybrid music company is because when we started, we were actually 2 music managers who basically forged our rosters. And we started from basically having a lightning in a bottle moment where we could ride off of a wave that was already sort of beginning to happen. So right from the beginning, we had like a diversity of different revenue streams that we could use in different areas of building the company. And when you early in like company building, I think you just use whatever tools you have around, and you end up at, you're 2 employees, and all of a sudden 10 years later you're 12 employees, and you can't really remember the first 10 years. But for us, it was definitely having the opportunity to have multiple different revenue streams that gave us the opportunity. But also we had, really early on, we had a distributor who believed in our idea and saw potential in what we were doing, that gave us a little bit of cash that we could, float our office space and our own music studio and record some music videos and keep it up in that sense. And then we started building from there. And I think just being very hard-headed and making sure that you reinvest everything you make to the extent that you can actually, diversify even more by signing more artists and if that makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Maja, from your perspective, does he describe it correctly?
I think so, yeah. By the time I started at year one, like the scrappiest first 5 years had already passed. But yeah, looking back on it now, I really did like step into, the type of business where Oskar left off. Like obviously, like with the clients that year one has been working with since the beginning, like they had a very, like I don't think they made a lot on streaming in the first couple of years maybe. but they were very interesting, like artists, and like their career trajectory was very driven by like internet culture, and that opened up like fashion opportunities and like touring stuff, which made them, you know, stay afloat for the first couple of years. Obviously, we're in a little different position now. We've grown a lot, and now we have a much more stable business, I would say, and clients who make money I don't want to say traditional way, but like if we look at Viagra Boys, like they obviously like they tour a lot, but they're also like a record selling band, and they stream a lot, and they do like they had a
Physical records also.
yeah, they sell physical and they do well in digital. Like yeah, they're a more traditional band maybe, with a more traditional career trajectory and like label setup. Yeah.
When we ended off the former panel, we got a reference story from my colleague in France, Guillaume, who mentioned the challenges two of his members discovered by success. The accidental success or the calculated success, and how we are prepared for it. And now, Roger, when Epitaph started off, what happened? Because a lot of music industry starts from like passion or wanting to release music or express yourself. But when did you start the label? When did the label start, and what took it off?
Well, that goes back to way before I started. You know, you're all entrepreneurs. I'm not. You know, I was hired on the peak of Epitaph Records when you were sending us faxes with your orders for Offspring. That was when I came in. That fax machine was on fire, and it was crazy. And we were shipping everything from the US. It was like millions of records came over.
Still, or?
No, at the time.
Oh, yeah.
We changed that. Then we started this company in Amsterdam, manufactured stuff, built a team with a couple of people with a computer. That's a whole different story, a whole different starting point.
Okay.
Yeah, I missed the whole, from Brad selling his records. Brad Gorowitz, who's the founder of the label, he was selling records from the back of his car and signing his friends.
The Lincoln label.
It's a classic story of this, like knowing everyone around you, all talented guys who were all punks. When I started, we had 10 bands, and they were all from the same group of people. That's how it started. That was the real luck factor that he had. There's NoFX, Rancid, Offspring. All these bands were, there. It's like what was happening in the Burning Heart in Örebro. Like it's the same. It's your family that you're bringing to, and there was a moment that it all opened up. Now, when it comes to fast forward to when I started, the risk is that you think you are a genius, and you can do anything. That you're an A&R god, and you have to grow. At that time, everyone was like going to a model of opening offices locally everywhere, hiring people. Becoming almost like trying to be a major kind of way of thinking. We never did that. We've never done it. We've grown. We hired a few more people. We only had one office. If you look at it now, with a bigger roster, we have another label called Anti as well, which is, Tom Waits started, was the reason to start that. We're still the same amount of people. So if you hold on to your strengths, and you just don't see yourself as the inventor of it all, but you just stick to your roots. And artists will find you, the right artists that you can handle, that you understand, that are part of your world. That's basically the key. Like, they're still asking, like, I travel, and they say, like, where is your local office? Like all these general managers everywhere, that whole structure. We've never had that, and we never will. Our artists are not asking for it. We just hire smart people who fight for us in territories, and that's always been the way. So I think sticking to your, there's another story like with you were not part of that, but we had distributors in all these territories. Some of these people that were distributing our records started to think that they were the A&R gods of the bands that Brad signed, because Offspring was an incredible album in the career for a lot of the people. Companies, independent companies, build their companies based on the success. But if you think that's all your invention, then you lose it. Yeah.
A lot of those companies doesn't exist anymore.
Exactly. And we're still around.
Yeah, I have an anecdote about selling from car, because we could only order 5,000 CDs a week, because that was the maximum we could put to our van. So we had to always like count like how big is our total order to Epitaph, because like if it were like 5,200, I don't know where we would put those 200. So it have to. We went to the airport to pick up the CDs basically every week, and it was always like we cannot order more than 5,000, because otherwise it would be 2 trips to airport.
And you lose margin. So. No, it's great. I love it. Keep it going. Then what are your comments, Riku, on Roger's point that local offices and the structure of indie business?
Yeah, growing is tough, because like at the time, like I sold to Universal, we were between like 11 and 16 people, and then we had like a couple of main artists like Nightwish or Children of Bodom, and I thought like if we lose them, I have way too much people, so it was like tough. And then like being under helm of Universal was like easier to think about that. Okay, at least I'm safe. Not the whole company will disappear, because so many. It is those companies at that time were growing pretty quickly, and they, like me, I didn't have any knowledge about basically any of this business. I didn't have any mentors. We didn't have this kind of events where you could come and maybe ask something from somebody to tell me how to do it. So everything is learned by mistake. So and those mistakes are sometimes super expensive. So therefore like it was safer choice, and just to save the company and keep also that helped us keeping those bands for several more years, because we have the backing of a larger company. So it is tough to growing in a way if you don't know, and you try to. I think of course you start to think about that you are better than you actually are.
I think there's an interesting question that I sometimes ask people, like, what did you know about running a label when you started your label? And you come from the management side, so how did you approach forcing? How did you express it? How do you approach it?
I had absolutely no idea on how to run a record label when we started doing it. I mean, my background is I come from like punk rock and hardcore music and indie music from my teenage years, and like back then I didn't even consider music being like a career or a job. It was just something we did for fun. Like we put out each other's 7 inches, like my band's demo, or like we went on tour, we booked it ourselves, and it just came natural to us to do it. So with that intention, I think I started like back then, because like only 10, 11 years ago, like managers shouldn't put out their own records. Like people were laughing at us. They were like, why would you're a manager, you should just go to a label and cut a deal, like invoice your 20% and just pay rent and get on with life. But we didn't want to do that. We wanted to build like a holistic structure for artists that was up and coming, and just build a little team, like a team of our own on the outside. So we learned by doing. Like it wasn't until later I like realized I had to pay neighboring rights, or like I had to like properly take care of our releases. So it's just been a learning process, I think, and it's still interesting to me. I mean, I learn new things every day. Our label is 10 years old now, and we have about 200 titles in the catalog, I think. So I learn new things all the time, and I think it's an exciting time in the music industry because it keeps changing. I think it's going to change as much in the next 10 years as it has in the last 10 years. So I just think it's an exciting time for like the craftsmanship of record making or whatever. Yeah.
But I I started music myself, and then I started at STIM, ended up in publishing at M&W and Gazelle. And when I started my label in 2004, everything was going down. I had good business, but it was like the whole market was crashing. And later on, I added a law degree, and I started sort of looking at my own experiences with other tools and all the different business models, like what you just said. The industry has been very, by tradition, specialized because there was economy in being only, just being a manager, specializing in just being a label, etc., etc. And when you start a new company, that's not the case. And today, it's even harder to be specialized.
Yeah, I mean, we live in a time now where like artists and managers and lawyers are all asking for very, very tight deals, like 5-year terms, distribution rates, but they still want creative direction and A&R and all of that, which is, of course, super problematic because it leaves absolutely no margin for like a new indie label or anything like that. If everybody just has to like, copy like the current like distribution model or like the best, absolute best, cheapest deal you can get. So I think for us, it's just the next couple of years is going to be like a challenge for us to like set our business apart from everybody else and make sure that people understand that we offer a different kind of business than like the general like distribution model that you can get for free in any like front desk at a major label basically nowadays. So we can't compete with that deal, so we need to compete with other selling points, I guess, and that's how we operate, and that's how we set out to operate in the next 10 years.
And by doing so, I expect that there's also some education or transitional discussions that needs to be had with managers and lawyers and artists, perhaps. Because I've been thinking about, it's interesting with the democratization of the digital era, and everyone can, there's no like, you can just release your music. But to build a career, it's difficult to do it on your own. And how are the discussions with, because you invest long term in expensive rock, like rock bands demand more than a DJ on a stage, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a conversation to be had like from day one, basically. We've learned that throughout the years that, it's a discussion that you need to have continuously all the time with artists and like re-educate them into what you actually do for them and make sure that they understand their own business top to bottom. I mean, a lot of artists doesn't want to know about their business, which is, a problem in itself. But you as a label, if you are responsible for their careers, in multiple different, territories, you need to accept the responsibility to like re-educate them all the time on how the industry changes and how revenue streams changes and what's important to know as an artist building a career, because I don't think we've ever like made a significant amount of money off of working with an artist until after maybe 5 years, and that goes for all our top artists. So investing in anything where you don't count on return of investment until after 5 years, everybody can agree that that's a terrible business idea. Terrible. So how do we do it? I mean,
And you still do it.
Yeah.
Yes, we still do it because we're idiots and we love music, right?
Well, I'm so grateful that we can have this conversation, because I feel as a TA and sometimes also as a lawyer when I consult for artists, that it's sort of we all need to rethink everything, and then we also need to communicate it to interested parties. It could be decision makers, politicians, government funding people, or artists, or distributors, or whatever. And yeah, how do we do? Do you agree on the how do you work with? What kind of discussions do you have? Are you changing the business models from? Because you say the long-term investment, this is like an old truth. I've been in the industry for 30 plus years, and it was like, yeah, you counted on return on the third album. That's like an old truth in the industry, right? But today, how the fuck can you give yourself that time when it's all about the rhetoric is about releasing a single, 150,000 songs are released per day. TikTok, you can't only promote to Spotify unreleased music. So it's a whole different rhetoric, but still old truths.
From Epitaph, it's a different starting position than where you're in, because we're investing based on our catalog. We have years of catalog, and we see everything that we do new, which is risk taking, as investing in the future catalog. It's a constant cycle. If you don't have that and you start from scratch, I mean, it's a bit of a cliche, but the luck factor is big in this. You got to have a few things which take off. Otherwise, it's very hard. And then you have to be smart about finding pockets of money here and there, hiring people that like you, want to work for you, have a lot of knowledge, and bring that in and building campaigns. And something has to click, and then it starts, and then it takes off. But it's a very risky road. And I mean, we're in a lucky position that we have that catalog. It's a different time than when Brad started signing from the back of his car. Is a completely different planet. And just selling vinyl copies and all the rest of it. I think like there's a huge opportunity now when we're all talking about how some companies are growing and growing and growing. What I think is that a lot of bands which are interesting for us, as independent labels, will fall off that system. They will not be absorbed by it in a good way, and they want to leave. If I was in a band, I would sign to you because of your philosophy, your approach, the people that you have. And yeah, I mean, it takes a little bit of patience. You stare at your Spotify for artists, where is the money? But you have to feel at home where you are. How do we keep our artists on Epitaph or on Anti? Is because we are doing something better, and that's not just paychecks and smart people in suits that tell you and that promise you a dream. It's just a certain philosophy, a certain way of thinking, short lines. They can call me anytime. Like, it's almost like being a manager, isn't it? Like, it's relationships. They feel at home. Our bands can leave for a major anytime. We're the time that you sign for endless record deals, we've never done that. Brad's never done that. You're there because you want to stay, and you feel at home there. And I think let the majors do their thing, grow. It's only giving us opportunities, because that middle cycle of bands that are in our world are super profitable, great bands, talented, real musicians. They might not feel at home in that structure. So I see a lot of positive sides of that.
And I think all what you just said, I want to include in the term sustainability. Because to have a sustainable, healthy company, you also need to care both with the people that you work with and represent, like the artist, but also yourself, I guess. So what are your thoughts on is that difficult? Is that easier or more difficult? Because there's also a lot of work and stressful. Maja, what do you say?
I think like good business essentially is business that you can do well with whatever tools you have. Like on a big scale, but also like on a small scale, like on a deal. The best deal is a deal that would work well for you and your client. And like, it's not necessarily like Oskar was talking about, like, we're not a major label and we shouldn't be trying to do major label deals for indie clients. We should, like, I think the sweet spot is where you find clients to work with that you want the same things, you're aligned on goals, and and in those cases we haven't had a super hard time communicating with bands or lawyers or other partners like external managers, because if everyone wants the same thing and that thing is like at the very core of what you do well, like that's the sustainable approach, I think, that leads to the best outcome. If you can wait 5 years to see money, which luckily we can.
Yeah. What do you say, Riku?
A couple of points were like what we discussed. Like for me, I'm not really, it's like basically an artist during my career that have been profitable within the first 5 years. So 5 years is like kind of limit to me. Like when I sign a band, I always think about stuff after 5 years, like after 3 albums, and therefore, look, I only basically do deals for the lifetime of copyright, because I don't see like otherwise making point to invest money and time for artists, because I know it's going to last so long to get the invested money back. But at the same time, like what we do deals are like basically with 2 options. So what I always say to bands, that you are not like here forever. If you are super good, somebody will come with the maybe master rights deal or something after that. So in that sense, I consider that we are like a minor league team trying to get artists to big leagues one day, and that's when we are really happy if that happens. So it's that kind of model, and like what you just were talking, like what I very often when we negotiate with a new artist, I tend to, if there's complaints about certain things, and I said like my philosophy is that if we are making money out of you and you are not making money, it's not fair. Like to us, it always feels like if you, but also it's other way around. Like if you are making money, we starting to make money at the same time. But we hope that time is pretty similar, so it happens at the same time, because then we have a goal that we both try to reach. But yeah, it has to be in that sense like fair, because like if of course it's a cooperation where it's a team, like where everybody has to be members of that team. Otherwise, it will not work. The competition nowadays is so fierce. So if we are not working for the same goal, it will not happen. But the thing basically, I work mainly with really like baby acts, really young artists, and for me it's a key to explain a lot of the stuff as early as possible, because the better they understand what we are starting to do and what we expect from them, I think we have a better chances of succeeding. So I think there's no point to hide anything from a young artist. Like it's a key to, but also like we have to sometimes explain that this at the end of the day is also a business. We have to be able to pay the bills, because if we are not able to pay the bills, it's not beneficial for artists either. So if the company disappears one day, so I think it's mutually beneficial, like knowing these things as early as possible.
For sure. Another thought is that when you work with new artists, that it may, very often young people, and in my experience, it takes a while. There are benefits of becoming older because you get experienced, and about building an artist's career that most artists want, perhaps. Maybe you don't have the full personal brand or identity developed when you start off. So it's difficult to have the long-term perspective. And that's a challenge, perhaps, when you start working with baby acts or new art. How do you handle that, Maya? That coaching that the label and the industry does in a successful collaboration?
Ooh, now I can only think of examples where that hasn't gone very well.
Well, the most don't go well, I guess.
I think it's important to separate internal goals versus like artist goals when you're planning for a release, because I think it's really easy to get stuck on like what are our goals, and you can have different goals like performance goals or whatever, but making sure that you are aligned with the artist early on. Because otherwise you might end up in a situation where like our goals was to get a bunch of cool press, and then the artist's goals was I don't want to do press ever. No one gets to know my name or see my face. So I think getting aligned very early, like you said, and making sure that there's a willingness to sort of invest work outside of just delivering the music. That's we're trying to learn to get better at this, but I feel like we're doing okay.
Yeah, definitely. I think the narrative in the artist community keeps changing all the time. I mean, I remember talking to someone on a similar panel like 2-3 years ago, where it was like, I'm so sick and tired of having to hear like the same narrative all the time, that artist doesn't need a label, like and I mean, there's truth to it, of course. I mean, there are arguably a lot of artists that can like drive their full career from their beds, but you know, building like a long-term career over multiple albums, play big rooms, big production, big merchandising business, it takes a team. You need a full team, and some people realize that late in their career, that you know, all these people actually did something every day, you know, at the office. Surprise. But I do think it's on us, you know, to keep re-educating people about what it is we actually do. And we need to do that internally all the time. I mean, I'm a very like positivity-driven person. I need to have fun at the job, so I put out a lot of records like over the years, lots of records. Like most of them I love. Some of them I feel bad about because they had a lot more potential than, you know, maybe happened in the end. But one thing that's new at our label is that every release needs to have like a clear intention to it. So we can't just throw out records into the world because it's irresponsible. And internally we have like this intention system where it's like, where do you want to go with this? Like what do you want to do? And that helps us focus on like the end result, and that helps us in educating the artist on what our intention is and how much we're going to spend on it and how much resources, and time is money and all of that. So I mean, for us, never having to like, I realize it all the time that I've never like worked at a real record label, so I don't know how other people do it.
One.
Exactly. So I like I said, I learn new things all the time, and I learn by getting to know other people in the industry and like, you know, talking to other people, just soaking in knowledge all the time, like learning how do you actually do this. So yeah.
But I think I spot a red thread here, that all of you work with rock bands and punk bands. Yes? No. Okay, you know, correct me. But if we start off first with guitar bands or punk, is that easier? In my experience, it was sort of, it's easier to work with like niche music. If it's metal or jazz, you have like a given network, and the more mainstream it gets, the more difficult, the wider the target group. Sort of, is that good or bad? Am I right or wrong? What's your opinion?
Well, you know, we're coming from a punk rock background. All the bands know how to get in the van and play. That's an advantage. You know, if you talk about building audience, that's still a key factor. I mean, you know, there is no abstract artist that refuses to connect with anything. It's just very simple. I mean, that is our specialty. We're still looking at how to build things. We had this meeting with Spotify the other day. And the guy said, yeah, it's not all about playlisting. It is about building your fan base. And that's exactly right. And we're in a lucky position that we attract bands that know what they're doing and they're excelling in it. And that's why we ended up working with Burning Heart, because they were fucking great bands. And they're all better than the competition. That's they build their audience in that way. So that's all I know. I know how to work bands that are willing to get on the play and grow from a small venue, or a squad or whatever, into the proper world of being on stage and playing in festivals and all that. It's still the same game in that sense. Yeah.
And still, there's so little room in media for that kind of music, which I think sucks. But hang on to the positive thing. And what do you? What are your thoughts? Or if you want to continue, Roger.
Yeah, I mean, it changes from year to year. What really matters in terms of like how people find new music, and it's gonna change. It's gonna keep changing. I mean, I've said, I sound so fucking old sometimes at the office. I've said to like our marketing department, one thing I've said is that email is the surviving social media.
Deep.
Yeah, it's so deep, so deep. But what I mean is that today it's TikTok, tomorrow it's something else. It's like it's not a sustainable business idea to like focus all of your resources on growing your follower count on Instagram. You need to like meet audience and build audience person by person. And because there's so many like big TikTok artists that can't play the hot dog stand at any festival because it doesn't make sense. They don't have real fans. So it's still the same old thing. We can't rely on playlisting. We can't rely on media. And I don't remember the last time like an article in any magazine like broke an artist. Like I can't really remember. But there was certainly a time when like an article in the Fader meant 35,000 unique clicks, but today it's 35. So it keeps changing, and we need to like change with the times and with the medias and with the distribution platforms that are available, and we need to be good at it. Because if we slack on it and don't care or rely on one thing, then we're just gonna be irrelevant at some point.
Yes, we got to do it all. And if you want to do any final comments, now is the time, because our time is up. I had a great time with you guys. Any final words?
Yeah, to me, it's like what you were just talking there. It's like the main thing is just to have an interesting music, interesting content. I don't care that much about social media. I'm too old to understand it anyway. And I tend to say to artists I work with that if you do great songs, people will find it eventually. They will one day, but maybe sometimes like we have had some releases that have been really taking like 6 months to take off. Like it's like if you just would like therefore I try to always say to the bands like keep doing it, don't stop like after release week, like because like, sometimes our young artists, they're really excited when the music comes out and then they forget about it, but it takes so much time that people will discover. But if that material is good, people I tend to believe that people will find it at some point. So therefore like 90% of our time goes to trying to get that material to the level that it can compete with the others. I think that's the key. I'm not trying to be expert on TikTok. I removed it from my phone ages ago because I just couldn't stand it. So I don't understand this. So why I bother? If I miss one TikTok hit, who cares? So and what you said about working with rock bands, or I think now it's maybe a bit easier because there's not that much success. So, but when the success arrives, you know that problems will come a day later because like there's always some people who want to take a part of that success. So therefore nowadays negotiation, everything is quite easy, I think, because like it's not very hot. Like I don't, luckily I don't need to meet these father managers at the moment at all. that will come when things start to be going a little bit better. So I need to start working again with the people who have no clue about the business, and it's really, really annoying spending those hours with those folks. But with the rock music, it's pretty easy at the moment. But I believe it will, and the band music as well. I think it's not living at the best times, but of course this industry goes always with in cycles, so it will come back one day, and then I will be working with annoying managers again.
Well, that's a famous last words for this panel. Big thank you, big hand of applause. Oskar, Roger, Maja, and Riku. Thank you, guys.